Welcome back to another Badlands card review. Today we've got some rogue cards, a couple bonus hunter cards that got revealed, and this shiny new legendary, the Azurite Scorpion Excavate Legendary Treasure Reward. This is not a collectible card as always. This, as all of the others, is the 4-mana 5/5 Elemental Beast Excavate Treasure you get after your 4th excavation, or also your 8th excavation, which is actually really relevant for this card because its battlecry reads: get 4 random spells, and if you've excavated 8 times, they cost 0. And that's a pretty crazy battlecry. That is super chaotic, of course. 4 random spells coming from any various class, any various costs, means you're going to get a pile of stuff. And the second time around, if you've excavated 8 times in a game, the second version of the Scorpion, the spells it gives you, are actually going to cost 0, which obviously notably is way better. Clearly, you get some random, 7 cost spell that's not synergistic, could be really hard to use on the first pass, but in the second pass, that 7 cost spell is almost certainly going to be amazing, or 5 cost spell, 10 cost spell, whatever it is, right? It's going to allow you to cheat quite a bit of mana, and which will soften and sand off some of the rough edges that the other cards might have given you previously, where you don't necessarily want to spend all this mana on an inefficient effect. That problem goes away. So for me, I think the Azurite Scorpion, actually pretty weak Excavate Treasure on the first pass. 4 random spells, I mean, it's not bad. A little bit of value is fine, but they're just not going to line up very well very often. They're going to feel kind of wasted. I mean, there are some like Thief Rogue implications there, of course, if you're trying to play cards from other classes. That could be a nice bonus or complementary package, but in a vacuum, probably not all that useful most of the time. You're going to get wacky stuff. But that second time around, you're going to feel happy about this. Getting a 5/5 and cheating, who knows how much mana into play effectively with the 0 cost spells, that's kind of insane. So I think the question for the Scorpion really becomes, how easy is it going to be for Rogue to excavate 8 times? And really, how quickly are they going to be able to excavate 8 times? Because if it takes too long, of course, they're just going to fall over dead before they get to this stage of the Azurite Scorpion. Now, thankfully, the legendary for Rogue that we haven't looked at yet is going to help speed things along. Because this is Drilly the Kid, a 4-mana 4/3 mech. Notably a mech, that's pretty important. It's got Battle Cry, Quick Draw, and Death Rattle. Excavate a treasure. So this is potentially 3 treasures in one play, which is obviously going to speed things along rather nicely. It seems like Rogue is getting a legendary Excavate card instead of a non-legendary like many of the other Excavate classes. So it is actually important that this gives you multiples, because you only have 1 of these in your deck as opposed to 2 of these in your deck. But especially with Rogue shenanigans, namely things like Shadow Step or Breakdance, and the ability to pull this back into hand and activate its Quick Draw. If you Shadow Step this, it's added to hand that turn. Quick Draw is on, which means you get both a Battle Cry and Quick Draw treasure on this after being Shadow Stepped or bounced in any given way. So then you also saw the Death Rattle kind of once it dies on board if you decide to let it die. So I think potentially getting like 4 treasures out of this is not crazy, because you play it, you get 1 off Battle Cry, you bounce it back, you play it again, you get 1 off Battle Cry and Quick Draw. That's a total of 3. Then that Death Rattle goes off and you have 4. That is already, of course, getting you to your first Azurite Scorpion, and you have any remaining Excavate cards in your deck to help you get to the next one. Now, that said, that's a really cool chain, but you did note that's 6 mana spent, because this is 4 and 2 for even post Shadow Step. That's, a card used in a Shadow Step as well. This is a legendary one of, so this has to be in your hand for all of this to happen, which does not always happen, right? Sometimes it's hard to find legendaries. They're just hiding that bottom half of the deck. So there are some kind of, crazy high ceilings on this card where it feels like it could just go nuts. You can get a handful of crazy treasures. You can move to your Azurite Scorpion, and you're just off to the races and going really well. I think there are going to be other scenarios where you're sitting on a couple Shadow Steps. Maybe you don't have a lot of things to do with them excitedly if you're trying to run all that at Drilly the Kid somewhere, and you just don't have enough Excavates. Your Scorpion's feeling terrible, or you haven't even gotten to the Scorpion yet. And things are going kind of clunky. Now, there are obviously going to be Other ways to utilize a Shadow Step, for instance, with Excavate, we already saw the neutral 2-drop. That's a fine Shadow Step target to get some treasures as well. So, you know, I don't think it's the end of the world if you don't hit your Julia the Kid on time, but it does create some feast and famine scenarios. Basically, some games you might be feeling on top of the moon, other times you might be struggling. Now, that said, you know, this is also a mech, so you've got some considerations. Can you toss like an Excavate package into mechs? Is that something that could actually work? Just because, you know, there's enough complementary pieces here. Mech Rogue does often run some complementary stuff in there mixed in. I don't know that treasures would necessarily be a better supporting package than what they already have running. So some questions about that, but treasures are good. I need to keep in mind and remind people that like it's not just about getting to the Azurite Scorpion. Treasures are really good along the way as well. Like Rogue getting some awesome 1-mana treasures, that's going to be good for the class. So I do think that the, like, you know, desire to Excavate will be there. I don't think you have to go crazy trying to push your Azurite Scorpions. Rogue is a class that will use the treasures well. So really the Kid's total output being high is probably ultimately a good thing and a net win for the class, despite any of those consistency concerns you might have. So moving on here, we got the Blood Rock Company Shovel, the other Excavate card for Rogue, a 1-mana 1/3. Death Rattle, Excavate a treasure. So another way here to get you some treasures. This one clearly a little bit slower. Theoretically takes you 3 turns to get your treasure back off the Blood Rock Company Shovel. So you play this on turn 1, you attack on 1, 2, and then the treasure opens up for you on 3. You may have like 2 treasures by then as well with the other Excavate card. So you can have a pretty good turn 3 with like a 1-mana treasure and a 2-mana treasure if you've played the turn 2 Excavate neutral. I think that would actually help you recover a lot. That said, I don't think Rogue hates this weapon. You know, they're hero powering a lot anyway. They find a lot of reasons and values to excuse that hero power and feel kind of decent about it, popping off Divine Shield, eating those 1 health things. This is like getting you a hero power plus early in the game, allowing you to do other things on turn 2. So you know, it's not the most exciting play as a 1/3 weapon, but I think it's something Rogue will still appreciate and be happy to have equipped. And notably, if you do draw this late in the game and you're worried about the speed of this, it's like, oh god, it's turn 7. I can't wait 3 turns for this treasure. Easy. Just hit the hero power button, instantly activate that Death Rattle, and you don't have to worry about it taking a while. You can do that on turn 2 as well, but likely that doesn't really benefit you much because you wouldn't be able to play the treasure until turn 3 anyway. If you equip this on 1 and hero power on 2, the treasure opens up on 3. If you play this on 1, the treasure's naturally opening up on 3 anyway. So unless you're just, you know, looking to squeeze in a little extra durability because you have nothing else to do on 2, that's not necessarily a huge upside early, but a big upside late when you do want to immediately activate this. So I actually think this card's pretty good. I saw some people kind of crapping on it earlier, but I like this one. I think Rogue will be quite happy with this. I don't think they need anything crazy here, and this is just more good treasure cards. So moving on here to the payoff card for Rogue Excavations. This is the Antique Flinger, a 4-mana 5/4. Battlecry, if you've excavated twice, destroy an enemy minion. And yeah, this looks solid, right? 4-mana assassinate on a stick, and a pretty big stick too. 5/4 is nice, aggressively statted minion. I always prefer when those health totals are a little higher to help this survive easier kinds of removal and such, but I think since it is going to have that natural swing built into it, you're not upset. This is kind of weird to say, but this is one of those cards that maybe doesn't feel as good on turn 4 as it does sometimes later in the game, which is weird. But essentially on turn 4, you're probably not going to have a lot of awesome things to kill yet with this Battlecry, and you may not have activated the Excavates yet either. So, you know, despite appreciating the 5/4 body perhaps a little bit earlier in the game, the Battlecry does scale well typically through time. You know, killing a big Titan later in the game, for instance, is probably going to feel better than like killing a 3/3 that's left over from turn 3 or whatever it might be. So this is one you might be like sitting on in hand a little bit and hope that you find a better turn 4 play and like hope you have an alternative. Like, you know, Trilly the Kid, of course, could be that better alternative. But still, the upside here is huge. There are so many big crazy things in Hearthstone these days that are very valuable to kill, and if you're going to be running an Excavate package, I think the Antique Flinger is going to feel like a very valuable piece of that puzzle. I don't think it's like mandatory for the record. I could technically, theoretically see some lists cutting this because they just want like a faster support package for Excavate or whatever, you know, they need to do something else, or they're all in on mechs, whatever it might be, right? It's possible this does not hold up to its other Excavate peers, but still looks like a solid card to me. I think it's fun. So moving on here, man, this card is really fun looking. The Wishing Well, a 5-mana 0/7. After you play a coin, get a random legendary minion from another class and set its cost to 1, which is so crazy. I love this idea. Throwing your coins into the Wishing Well and getting a wish. And some cool Thief Rogue implications here. Again, much like we talked about with the Azurite Scorpion, we're kind of getting like a little bit of a Tess Thief Rogue package showing up here, which is awesome. You know, I love playing Tess, and Tess still in Standard gives you some great opportunity to do that. Now you may be wondering, like, where in the heck am I getting all these coins? We only have, you know, the coin in Standard. There is also currently the squirrel, the Coppertail Snoop mech, you may remember. And we also earlier remember had the Greedy Partner revealed. If you're holding another 2-cost card, get a coin. So a couple ways in Rogue currently, but that's not all. We're going to see additional cards here. The Bounty Wrangler will get you a coin, and Dart Throw here can also get you a coin as well if both of these hit the same minion. So a couple ways to generate coins here for your Wishing Well. And obviously, when it comes to legendary minions, some are going to be completely insane if they cost 1, because they originally cost 8 or 9 or 10 or whatever. Sometimes you are going to get stuff that's hard to use. It has like really specific synergies that don't make sense, or you know, you get like a 2 or 3 cost legendary that doesn't really feel like it was discounted all that much. So you are going to need, I think, a nice set of coins to make this feel worth it, much like say Paladin getting its coins off the Countess, or its legendaries off the Countess. You know, they get 3 choices for each of the invitations. You know, sometimes a couple of those choices sort of suck. These aren't discovers, right? So you might need 3 coins to effectively get, you know, 1 good one on average, and even then the results may not be as exciting as you hope. So I mean, listen, I do ultimately think this really sounds like a meme deck. There might actually be a Thief Rogue deck that kind of makes sense with some Excavates and some of the other cards we're going to take a look at. I don't really know if I can see the Wishing Well fitting in, because you just have all these pieces you got to put together, right? You got to get all these cards that are generating you coins that maybe don't feel that good to play. You got to play a 0/7 for 5 mana. Like, yes, of course, each coin gives you the mana to play the legendary, which is very flavorful and very cool, but you might need 3 or 4 to make it feel like it's worth it to commit to the Wishing Well. That doesn't even necessarily play all that well into a test game plan, because some random legendaries aren't good. They're just kind of bodies on board. So like, insanely fun. I can't wait to play this. Like, Wishing Well Rogue is going to be so much fun to play for me. I don't think it feels like it's going to be a competitive deck, despite the kind of cost cheating that happens here with the legendaries. I think the randomness is going to be too big of a downside, and I think in particular the setup is just going to require too much from a deck building standpoint, and executing it in game as well is going to cause you to struggle too. So really fun, A+ card for me. Just not a great one, I don't think. So moving on to the Bounty Wrangler we teased here. This is a 3-mana 3/4 quick draw or combo. Get a coin. And like we talked about earlier with this quick draw stuff in particular, kind of crazy on shadow steps here. You like combo this out 1 turn, you shadow step it, you play it back, you're activating the quick draw, or I guess the combo as well in that case. And this is a way to like start fueling together a lot of coins, but again, you know, you're talking about multiple cards, shadow steps, and so on, and you're not really doing anything to the board. You're still spending extra mana on all of that, because this is, you know, 1 mana after being shadow stepped. So you know, again, it doesn't really seem like it comes together for a Wishing Well deck, but could this card exist outside of that? Are coins just good enough in general for Rogue to cheat out bigger things and do things that this is still worth it? Maybe. I think just comboing this out doesn't sound too crazy, especially if you've already got some other coins sitting around from other stuff or whatever. There is a possibility you have kind of a innervate Rogue of sorts. It's just about getting coins and doing big cool things with them, or playing as many cards as possible in a turn. Things like Graveyard Rogue style decks could be a thing with all these coins, various miracle shenanigans. Auctioneer got moved out of Standard, but you know, those styles of decks still certainly could exist, and this could be a piece for them for sure. Definitely not one that probably feels very good to play on turn 3 too often, but because you have the quick draw. That might be hard to do exactly on turn 3 unless you top deck it like a genius. But occasionally, coining into this gives you the kind of coin back, gets you that 3-4 down a turn early. That feels like a decent enough play to me. Moving on here to Dart Throw. This is a 2-mana spell. Throw two damage darts at random enemy minions, and if both hit the same minion, you get a coin. So, this is good at removal if you've got 2 2/2s on board, so you get to clean up the board a little bit. Bad at getting you a coin in that case, but I think there will actually be scenarios where there's just like a 3/3 on board or a 4/4 on board, and this is a cheap little way to clean that up while still getting that coin in hand. And for decks that can utilize that coin in a specific special way, like they're built to use that coin by cheating out something big or having these kind of coin packages, or again, miracle style stuff, that's probably worth it. I don't know that every deck will value a coin enough. I mean, coins are good, like, don't get me wrong, coins are great, but sometimes if you don't have the right things to cheat into or the right big plays to get down early, they don't necessarily add up to a ton of value compared to just running a perhaps better card at a base. But this is kind of neat in that way. Like, flexible removal early for Rogue can help you kind of keep up and swing the board nicely, and then also getting that coin sometimes too is a real bonus when this does hit that singular target, which might still feel like good removal sometimes too. If you need to deal with a 4/4, this is a good option. Moving on to the Shell game here. This is a 3-mana spell. It gets you a random epic, rare, and common card from other classes. So this is another kind of thief rogue fuel piece, but boy, is this a risky one. It's number one, pretty expensive. At 3 mana, that's just a lot to commit here to a pile of random stuff, and there's no rhyme or reason that these cards will be very good on average. Rarity doesn't really determine card quality, number one, but it's just a bunch of random stuff. It's not it's not narrowed in any way or specific in any way. It's not like big spells, for instance, like we've seen in the past, like getting 2 5 or higher mana spells. That gives you a direction, some reliability. It gives you stuff that is going to be big and substantial. This could be 3 garbage 1-cost cards that are like synergy based and do absolutely nothing. So at the end of the day, I don't know. This is a really clunky spell to weave in. You're sacrificing 3 mana. Tons of tempo loss here for cards that probably don't even feel that good. Maybe really bad for your test. It's not Discover, so you don't get to pick things that work for you. This seems really tough for me. Even if I'm playing like a Thief Test Rogue deck, I don't know if I play this card. It just seems so unreliable and potentially has so much wasted time, a card slot, mana, etc., that I don't think it's worth it. This one, though, makes a little more sense to me. This is Stick Up. It is 1 mana. Discover a quick draw card from another class. So this is great because this is a Discover number 1. So you can pick something that fits the game state, that fits your game plan, that fits tests, etc. That's pretty nice. And the quick draw, as long as you have, a sufficient amount of mana, it's going to be playable right away. It's added to hand this turn. Quick draw is active, so you're going to get a card that probably has some nice bonus or upside and class cards specifically. Again, feeding into your test, feeding into your thief package. But even outside of that, this is actually kind of a cool card. Just spin 1 now to get something nice in a given situation. I don't hate that for other decks as well. Quick draw is a nice little bonus on a lot of cards. So I like this one a lot. Really, really good card for Thief Rogue, and maybe even some life beyond that too. Moving on to Triple Sevens, a new 7-mana spell. Deal 7 damage to a minion and draw 7 cards. So Sprint is in shambles, dude. Classic Sprint does not know what to make of this. So this is a big effect, of course, but coming with a big cost as well. I think that big cost is just going to be too prohibitive. And frankly, this almost draws you too many cards. It's actually kind of clunky. Because sometimes, you're just going to burn a few things. You could have dealt with fewer cards drawn, and you would have happily accepted a lower cost in exchange for that. 5 mana draw 5 probably feels a lot better in many scenarios. So Sprint might actually still just be better than this, the modern version of Sprint, if you're looking for this sort of card. I mean, the deal 7 to a minion does help this feel like it's less of a complete just waste of a turn, but at the same time doesn't really feel very good. That's actually not big enough to kill like a lot of titans and things later in the game. And then often you probably want to just like deal with a couple 3/3s or a couple 4/4s, and it feels like this doesn't have the right shape for that board state either late in the game. So basically having such an inflexible tool that costs so much feels like it's going to be really awkward to play. I know there's still the like 4-mana Trickster Naga or whatever in Rogue that can cheat out big spells like this, but I don't actually think that this is the right kind of spell for the Swift scale Trickster here either. So I don't know. I just don't really see a place for this card to thrive. I think this one's going to struggle. Now, before closing up this video, there were also some Hunter cards revealed today. We're still waiting on one more Hunter card. They've come out at such weird times. I'm going to save the full reviews for these until we get that last Hunter card, but I wanted to push this video through today after we saw the Rogue stuff. So I'm just going to show you these. We'll talk more about these in detail later. This is Bovine Skeleton, a 3-mana 3/3 undead beast. Death Rattle, if this has 4 or more attack, summon a Bovine Skeleton, so some more like hand buff support stuff. The Camouflage Mount is a 4-mana spell. Give a minion +3/+3 and a random bonus effect. Those are the kind of keywords, bonus effects we've seen a lot now: taunt, lifesteal, etc. When it dies, summon a chameleon. That chameleon's going to have the bonus effect as well. So these are bringing back that old mount flavor I guess we had from like Stormwind, I think. And then Star Shooter, a new 4-mana 2/3. After your hero attacks, get an arcane shot. So a lot of fuel potentially there for arcane hunter stuff, which is kind of scary as always. Hunter getting lots of damage and more arcane support. Drilly the Kid is a 4-star card. Bloodrock Company Shovel is a 4-star card. The Antique Flinger is a 4-star card. Wishing Well is a 2-star card. Bounty Wrangler is a 3-star card. Dart Throw is a 3-star card. Shell Game is a 1-star card. Stick Up is a 4-star card. Triple Sevens is a 2-star card. So there you go. That wraps it up for this particular Rogue review. I'm very curious to hear which of these cards you guys think are going to stand out. Is the Azurite Scorpion perhaps being maybe the weakest of the Excavate legendary treasures? Is that going to hold Rogue back? I still don't think so. I think they're going to like the normal treasures enough to be pretty happy. Although I will acknowledge this one might feel the worst at a base level. So curious to hear your thoughts on that and more. Thanks so much as always for watching, and until next time, game on.